Today I'd like to show you a special book, a book that during normal times may be interesting only for tiny group of political science fanatics, but as famous Chinese curse says, unfortunately we live in interesting times. Obviously everyone understands what I'm referring to. Michał Lubina, Russia and China, a political marriage of convenience. A few words about the author. There are many so-called experts who think they know everything and they can answer any question, but the reality is much more complicated. And our knowledge and understanding of the world are in many cases very tiny. We are often like a baby in the woods. I know that I know nothing. A famous quote attributed to Socrates, which founded modern science, because real science relies on doubts, humility, and persistence in asking questions without clear answer. Of course, there are also simple things like differential equations, where many tasks you can precisely count. Electronics is also quite easy. But how to study human behavior when a human is often irrational being directed by emotions and accidents? I know it from my personal life. Many happenings that strongly influenced my life happened without any planning, completely accidentally. And this is only one person. How to study behavior of millions of people, like we have in political science? It's impossible. We can only have a shallow perception of it. Political science is much more similar to quantum mechanics, where we can only estimate the probability of existing some state with important role of accident. And I feel Professor Lubina realizes it very well. Referring already to the book itself, first of all, I'm so impressed by titanic detailed job Michał Lubina did gathering all these facts from about 30 years of relations. I'm quite sure it required a lot of effort and sacrifice. This book includes an overview of political, economic and military relations, also in Central Asia and Asia-Pacific region. It relates to a period from 1991 to 2017. It shows a changing dynamics of these relations. Catastrophic during the Cold War, which nearly ended with open war between these two countries, and a slight improvement after that period, which is the main content of the book. I distinguish two important moments. One after 9/11, and second, Russia-US reset under Obama administration. During every of these two periods, Russia gained benefits, and after that was disappointed, because according to their mind, they got too little from the United States. I'd like to emphasize two of the biggest merits of this book. First, debunking the myth of demographic colonization of Russian Far East by Chinese, and second, creation or popularization the term asymmetric win-win model of relations. There is not a big amount of Chinese on Russian Far East, and it never was. And it's very funny because different Russian institutions estimated that number from 50,000 to 8 million. A precision of Russian psychologists is incredible. What is the asymmetric win-win model of relations? I love that term. For example, there are two sides negotiating a deal. And in extreme situation, it looks something like that. First side, I will give you everything. Second side, I will not kill you. Deal! Deal! In May 2014, after the beginning of Russian-Ukrainian war, Putin went to China to sign up the gas contract. Before the negotiations, he was very self-confident. But after 3 days of negotiations, he said, Chinese are very serious negotiators who drank quite a bit of our blood during the negotiations. How may look a theoretical meeting between Putin and Xi Jinping after the radical escalation of Russian-Ukrainian war in 2022. Before negotiations, kiss me this food, give me a blowjob, and during the negotiations, Xi Jinping would demand 51% of shares in Rosneft, and he would offer in return to help Russian economy to avoid a total collapse. And Putin would have to agree to all of this because he has no choice now. At this point, I have one important question, which I planned to ask Professor Lubina, but I didn't have an opportunity to do this. And the question is, why Putin did this? Why did he abandon the policy of balancing the powers that was so beneficial for Russia for many years? Why did he agree to transform Russia, a potential world power, into a Chinese semi-colony? Why did he trigger off an open confrontation against the United States that turned out to be a total disaster for Russia? China gained safe and strategic backside, natural resources in dumping prices, and a situation when attention of the world is focusing on Russia, not China. And Putin in return gained only patting on the back and words. Putin is a great leader who is restoring Russia's greatness. It's crazy. I have my own personal interpretation of all of that, but of course I don't have an insight into this guy's mind. Maybe I'm wrong. And I'm curious what others, especially Professor Lubina, think about it. As the final conclusion, I give this book rating 6 of 5. It's absolutely amazing and should be read by any person interested in Russia and China relations. At this point, it's worth to compare this book to the previous Professor Lubina's book, The Bear Overshadowed by the Dragon, gap between these two books is 3 years, and it is visible. Michał Lubina developed as a political scientist during that period. The newer book doesn't have repetitive content and it's more mature. What do I mean by that? There are some people who say that basing on location of mountains, rivers, coastline, you can predict what will happen in any country in the next 100 years. And because of geography, politicians have only tiny freedom of action. Tiny. Michał Lubina is later stunned by this way of thinking in his first book. In the second book, he abandons such vulgar simplification. He learns on his own mistakes, plus for him. Generally, my rating of The Bear Overshadowed by the Dragon on Goodreads would be 4 on 5, but I don't want to decrease Professor Lubina's average rating, so I didn't add the rating of that book. I also want to mention about one thing that is not included in this book, because I really appreciate Michał Lubina for that. Namely, Belt and Road Initiative, which in Poland is described by Chinese propaganda as Nowy Jedwabny Szlak. Michał Lubina says he treats it as a great Chinese PR project. I have similar view on that. And Michał Lubina is probably the only one who says about it publicly. Many Poles believe in that bullshit, that Nowy Jedwabny Szlak is a historic chance for Polish economy. I think that happens because of these big Polish complexes. And when someone offers us peace, we take it with infantile enthusiasm. Like an ugly girl without money who is looking for a husband, as some people describe Poland. At the end, I have one remark, because of course I was reading this book with big pleasure and totally absorbed by its content. However, I realize it's a book only for political science fanatics, and after 5 pages, normal people will be bored and will not understand too much. I'm mentioning it to avoid potential disappointment. But for people who desire to have some knowledge about Russian-China relations, it's a must-read book, and I highly recommend it. Michael Lubina, thanks for watching!